I suppose I've spent 30 years of my life testing cars and writing reviews for newspapers and magazines, and the most interesting tests are those that were comparative, in other words, those that tried one vehicle against another. And they were more relevant because if you go to buy a car for yourself or your family, you make a choice. You decide between a car and its various features. And if you're wise, you won't just consider price, which you'll forget after a few months, but you look at the important things, the things you have to live with, like the space, the ride, the comfort, the features of the vehicle, and the power of the engine, the factors that really matter. Well now, in the four-wheel drive category, there's a most interesting battle developing between the vehicle that's been the champion of its category for quite some time, the Mitsubishi Pajero, and the challenger, the totally new Holden Jackaroo. Now, I've driven four-wheel drives quite a bit. In fact, I won the four-wheel drive class in the last London-Sydney rally. But my heavens, have four-wheel drives changed since then? In those days, they were pretty rough sort of things, but now they have many of the attributes of a passenger car. They have much more supple ride, they have better finish inside, more features. And there's no doubt that the vehicle that has led this trend is the Pajero. It's won many of the transitional buyers, people who have made the switch from two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive, not because of the off-road characteristics, but because of the other factors that are so important. The size, the space, the safety, all those things that people do perceive as being very important factors in favour of a four-wheel drive. So we're going to compare the two of them. And let's start with looking at the design philosophy. Now, the Pajero is built by Mitsubishi, who are renowned for building passenger cars and light commercials. And many of the features are derived from passenger vehicles, principally the engine, which is taken from a passenger car. On the other hand, the Jackaroo, which is built and designed by Isuzu in Japan, is made by one of the world's great heavy truck manufacturers. And it shows. It's not only bigger, but it also has great features in terms of strength and durability. So let's have a look at the two vehicles. First, appearance. These wings on the Pajero are done to improve what you might call the impression ratio. They're made of plastic, as you can hear, and they give it a nice squat appearance. They made it seem much broader, but in actual fact, there's no change in the effective width of the vehicle. The Pajero is just the same size as it always was. Those bolt-on flares give it something of a kit car look, and I know a lot of people find that attractive, but they can't disguise the fact that it is narrow. You compare it with the Jackaroo, which has flush bodywork right out to the wheel level. Not only is it a wider car, but more important, it is much roomier on the inside. You can see it quite clearly. The bonnet's high on the Jackaroo, but probably as a result there's lots of ground clearance, nothing there to get knocked off. And look at the windscreen pillars. They're narrower, which means you get much better vision. The Pajero used to be powered by a four-cylinder Mitsubishi motor, you know, the 2.6-litre four with balance shafts. That really is not up to the job. It's a bit underpowered for a car this weight, although you can still get it as an option. This is a 3-litre V6. Nice engine. It was developed originally for one of the passenger cars in Mitsubishi's range. It has multi-point fuel injection. It's a very modern sort of motor. It develops 109 kilowatts at the high figure of 5,000 RPM. Now that's high for a four-wheel drive, and you'd have to work this hard to get that sort of power out of it. Use the gears a lot, keep the revs up. The torque figure is high, 234 Newton meters, but again, at a high figure, that comes at 4,000 RPM. So it's not a vehicle for lugging around. You've got to make the engine work to get the best from it. As far as fuel consumption is concerned, I've seen tests in magazines, comparisons, and they suggest that this is a thirstier unit than the Jackaroo. So despite being smaller, 3 litres, it is less powerful, has less torque or pulling power, which is what you need around the paddocks and fields. The horsepower's fine for the highways, but the torque is what's needed for hard work. And it is thirstier, so it comes out second best on all those scores. By comparison, the engine in the Jackaroo is purpose-built, and I never thought I'd see such a motor in a four-wheel drive. I mean, look at the specification, 3.2-litre V6. Well, that's fair enough. That could be in a four-wheel drive, I suppose. But it's got overhead cams, fuel injection for more efficient delivery of the fuel, hydraulic valve lifters for quieter operation as well as minimising wear and so on. But the big trick, the thing that really astounds me, it has 24 valves, 4 valves per cylinder. Now, that's the sort of feature that you saw once only in racing cars, and they only used to develop their power high up. Wonderful when you got them going, but not much low down. Somehow, the engineers at Isuzu, who are preeminent in the design of heavy trucks and light commercials. Somehow they've made this thing give the best of both worlds. High performance and yet rugged, low-down torque, that is twisting or pulling power, so the thing will really work low down, and yet when you drive on the highway and enjoy the other characteristic of a four-wheel drive, it's just like a sports car. Now, it develops 130 kilowatts, which is 19% more than the Pajero, and it's amazingly economical. The RACV, the Victorian Club, did tests, and they found that on the highway it gave 13.8 litres per 100 kilometres. In town, 16 litres per 100 kilometres, and that's even more impressive. I would have thought it would have been much thirstier. So it is an economical engine as well as being very high performing. Whoops. Well, the first impression, it's a bit tight. The seat is not my size, it catches a bit. I'll be interested to see what that's like when you're driving along. My knee rubs on the door and I'm very close to the door itself. It's narrow, that's the feeling. It's not exactly claustrophobic, but it's not as big as you'd think. Obviously, it's not designed to carry sheep or to be driven through very muddy paddocks and so on. It is very much like a high-class passenger saloon. Nice instruments, the rev counter and the speedo where you can see them clearly, the two main gauges, I suppose, your fuel gauge and your water temperature right in front, plus the transmission mode and other controls for oil pressure and charge there, plus this device to tell you when you're about to fall off the side of a mountain. Yeah, that's good. I'm not too sure about driving it though. It's much more cramped than I thought it would be for what is essentially a big, heavy vehicle. I'm not too comfortable in the seat. It's got armrests, which are a waste of time. You've got to lift them up. You couldn't possibly drive the car with the armrest there. You'd lock your elbows. My knee hits that. I'll see again what that's like when I start bouncing along. The gear lever is fine. The transmission lever, what they call Super Select, which enables you to select one of 4 different driving modes, is obviously designed for left-hand drivers on the wrong side. Now, I don't know whether I'd be happy trying to find it at 100 kilometres an hour to get the right gear, or whether I could get the right gear. If I had to look down over there, I'd be off the road by the time I went down the panel of information. But still, it's nicely finished. It's a 7-seater, or a so-called 7-seater, 5 adults, 2 children. So let's work our way down the body of the vehicle. Right, oh, this is a bit of a trick. Foot up, head down, and in we go. There we are. Yeah. What's wrong here? I'm on a hill. Oh no, it's contoured to take 2 people, so only 2 can sit in the back. There is a space in the middle here for a 3rd person, but anyone who is shaped that way wouldn't be welcome as a passenger in my vehicle. There's not a lot of room. I touch the roof here. You sit up very high. Touch the roof if I lean forward. It's okay if I'm leaning back, but my feet are uncomfortable. They're crammed right under the back of the seat there. They just fit, but it's not a comfortable angle at all. Now, there are 3 armrests, one on either end, one in the middle. The one on the end here, lift a button, down it comes. Well, isn't that nice? You can take your drinks with you on the way and try not to spill them if the ride's nice and smooth. It is obviously a vehicle designed for around town rather than the bush. I mean, you wouldn't have this sort of trim if you were going to put it to some hard use, nor the carpet, but still, that's fair enough. 95% of its time it'll be on good roads and doing pleasant, smooth trips. Now, what's it like in the back? Well, to get in the back, it's a big one-piece door. It opens towards the footpath, which is good from the point of view of loading, but it sticks the spare wheel out in the traffic, which is bad from the point of view of passing cyclists who might stop, oh, and the wind catches it too, who might stop for more than just a discussion about the weather. Now, inside, a lot of space, and that's a feature of four-wheel drive wagons. One reason why people buy them is they can stack tons of gear inside, and this is a good example. It's got tie-down hooks. If you need to put more gear or longer items, you'll have to fold forward the back seat. It goes down, but only in one piece. It's not divided. It's not a split back seat, which is a bit awkward. To let it down, you've got to pull up those 2 buttons at once. So if you want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, you can get in here and practice. It takes a bit of effort. Goes down flat. Now, these seats, when folded, worry me a little bit. One reason is they intrude a bit on luggage space. They do come out beyond the wheel arches, so you wouldn't fit high items here that you might otherwise squeeze in. But more important, they block your rear vision, particularly when reversing or if someone's overtaking you. You wouldn't see them till the last minute. They get in the way. You really need a PhD in jiggling straps and pulling levers to get the thing down. They're allegedly designed for adults, although I think I'd only be fitting very small adults or maybe a disposable aunt or two if I had people in the back. Ideally, they're designed for children. When they're both down, I'm wondering how on earth the children get in. Would they come in the back and climb around the side or over the back, or do you pull the back of the back seat down and they climb in from the front? Whatever way, they'll have a lot of fun getting in, but it is difficult. All right, let's have a look at the Jackaroo. Well, it looks wider. It's also got this built-in wind deflector here, which keeps the back clean, which is a great feature. And the two-door arrangement. In this case, the spare wheel goes out towards the footpath, and the smaller door towards the traffic, much safer. Yes, there's room here. You've got your tie-down hooks again. A good feature here, the luggage rails, which protect both the luggage and the vehicle itself. Now, the seats, again, fold up on the side. They look a bit more substantial, although they're not as thick. They don't take up as much space. They're much closer in line to the wheel arches. Also, note here the vision. You can see out the back corner, so there's no problem there. By the way, the seats can be removed altogether if you need more space, so that's another bonus. To bring them down, you just loosen off the strap, pull that through. This automatically falls into place. Pull the lever up, the seat's back there. Now, if the kids want to get in from the front, you've got a split seat, 60-40, which is a terrific arrangement, both for children and for loading long loads. An easy matter, just lift one button on the side, and there it is. Now, putting the seat back in place is straightforward. Just lift the button, and there it is. Well, that's much easier. It's a bigger door, easier access. You don't need to be a gymnast to get in. Yeah, the first feeling, is of more space. The interior room, I believe, here especially, is bigger than a Land Cruiser, so it's got much more interior room than you'd think from the outside, which is, the result of clever design. You've got space here for the hips. The arm fits nicely there. There's tons of room here, as you can see, for my legs, and my feet slide in and out under the seat, and there's a footrest down there. That, I suspect, is not just for the comfort of the passenger, but also to protect the floor from scruffing. So, it's a good feature. Headroom, well, tons there. And when I lean forward, I get more, so you get this sort of nice, consistent level. You're not perched quite as high as in the Pajero, which I find more secure, but you get a good view all the same. Headrests are adjustable. If I want to, I can lift this up. So it's a nice, convenient feature. There is an armrest if you only have two, but look here. It's a genuine three-seater, and that's quite comfortable. Yeah, set up, good view, so it's a good spot. But the material here is obviously not made to take a pack of blue heelers, but it's good, durable material, and it would certainly be suitable for driving around town, which is, I suspect, what most people will be doing most of the time. There are 2 additional speakers in the rear doors, making a total of 6. The Pajero has 4, which means that rear passengers get the full benefit of what appears to be a very good sound system. Let me just lower this bigger part of the seat. This is the 60% row. Very simple to do, one button. And look at this, a picnic table. Now, if you want more room for carrying long objects, you just lift one lever, it folds forward, makes it very easy for kids to get to the back seats. This is the way in, I think. And look at this. Down here, protected by both seats, is a security compartment. It will hold wallets, cameras, valuables out of the sight of curious eyes. A terrific advantage, I think, of the split seat arrangement. Now, for comparison, back to the Pajero with its one-piece seat, you lift both buttons there and it goes forward, so do you. To lift it up again, you've got to get your knees in place or you won't get it. It's big and it's heavy, which is why I prefer the split seat, so much easier. Well, it's easy to get in. Yeah, well, again, there's a feeling of more space. The seat is nicely shaped at the back here. It's got those pads out the side to support you, but they're a little broader. They're more for someone my size, so they wouldn't cut in on a long trip. And this panel on the side with the window controls, that too doesn't cut into my kneecap like that. I'm clear of it, I don't have to touch it, but if I want to brace my knee, then it's again just a flat surface, so it wouldn't be uncomfortable. Greater hip room, greater shoulder room, which are vital statistics on a long trip or if you're on a rough road and being sort of shaken around, the others would drive you mad. This has got room. There's nice leg room. Everything's well within reach. Nice steering wheel. I like the feel of that. Now, I've read some criticisms of the Jackaroos instruments. I don't know why. I like them. They're simple, straightforward. You've got your rev counter and your speedo right in front of you. It's well envisioned through the steering wheel. Nothing's blocked. And on the right are the two much smaller instruments for the oil pressure and the fuel. And on the left, you've got your voltmeter or charge and your water temperature. And that's it. All the information you need is right there. By the way, you can adjust the rake of the steering wheel. You can too on the Pajero, although it's just a little harder to reach. Here it's just a very simple operation. The other controls, like the wipers and the lights, are right here. You've got a high-quality Eurovox radio here with a built-in security coding system. In other words, if someone breaks in and tries to steal it, they can steal it, but it'll never work. It's coded only to work in this vehicle. You've got your ventilation system, your air conditioning down here. It's all very simple, very easy to use and understand. The gear lever in the right place, that's nice. And the transmission control close to the driver, where it should be. A standard fitting across this model is the cruise control, which is a very handy feature for long trips. It not only makes it more relaxing, but it makes sure that you don't exceed the speed limit. You set it on what you want, and that's the way it'll stay. There's good vision in the rear. You can see, if there were children in the back, you can see them. You haven't got to get up and peer around headrests as you do on the Pajero, so it's got better vision here, and of course you can see out either side. They're not, your vision rather, is not obstructed by those folded seats if they're tucked out of the way. A feature that I like and suggests that the designers really understood what passengers go through in four-wheel drives is on this side there are no fewer than 3 hand grips. Now that's one more than most people have hands, so they're certainly allowing for people to grab it there, or here. This one I really like because often when you're driving along, you know, the passenger, down goes the hand, and it's a good place to get security on a very, very rough track. Again, there's an armrest here. I'd keep it out of our way. I don't like an armrest when you're driving, but it'd be handy, I suppose, at the drive-in or just sitting down. Armrests are great for passengers, but me, when I'm driving, I'd like to have it up there. Okay, let's see how they drive, and I'll start with the Pajero. Oh, and some nice touches. The wipers on the headlights, fog lights built into the bumpers, and front and rear one-piece bumper assemblies. They not only make the vehicle look neater, they're much cheaper to replace if you damage it in an accident of some sort. The Pajero has 3 pieces, and not only is it a bit scrappy, but it's 3 times more expensive to replace than the Jackaroos bumper. Well, the first thing I should say is I don't feel very comfortable. The seat's quite contoured, but it's shaped for a different person. It's tight around the base here and it digs into my ribs. This would hurt on a long trip, I'm sure. And my knee, well, this reminds me of the days I used to rally a Mini. There was a little armrest on the side there which used to press against the side of the knee, and at the end of the night I'd be almost paralysed in the right leg, and this presses in the same place, so it'd be uncomfortable. Again, on a long trip, it's just, there's a little angle there where these controls are, and it just rubs me in exactly the wrong place. You sit up nice and high, so you've got a good view, and that's a great feature of this type of vehicle. You're high, you're safe, you've got a nice strong vehicle all around you, and yet you can see everything with greater clarity and certainly over a greater distance than the drivers of conventional vehicles. There's one problem though as far as rear vision is concerned, and it's to do with the 2 children's seats up the back. They fold up and on the side, and they virtually obscure any chance you have of seeing what's coming from those back quarters. They do act as real obstructions to vision there. I don't like that. This is essentially a car engine, a nice smooth car engine, and just been grafted into a 4-wheel drive where the requirements can be a little different. You have to keep the revs up. That's very obvious. Otherwise you'll be stalling it a lot, particularly parked and reversing and things like that, even on steep hills. Now I'm in 3rd gear and I'm doing 50, 40, oh, doesn't like this. Really dying right off. And it's hard to get. Even 2nd, that's flat in 2nd on this slope. So you have to have the revs right up to get the performance out of it, which could be a bit of a handicap, I suspect, out on in rough going, where you always can't have 3,000 revs going in the motor if you're tackling a sandhill or going through a creek or something. So you must keep the revs up and be well aware of what lies ahead. A lot of revs for this start. Yeah, well, here we are. That's sort of more like performance car performance, isn't it, rather than four-wheel drive. I don't know whether I'd be too happy out on some bush tracks with this combination. Well, that was the Pajero under conditions that most owners will probably encounter most of the time. Now I'm going to try the Jackaroo over the same roads. Well, I fit. That's the first thing. The seat is comfortable. I don't have that pressure right under the ribs. I can feel support there, but it's not uncomfortable. I could drive in this for a long time, I think. My knee also is against the control panel on the side. There's one here too that controls the electric windows and so on. But it's at a comfortable angle. It doesn't sort of press in. It's just a few centimetres difference, I suppose, in location. But for me, it makes an enormous difference. And it's this feeling of space, I suppose, that is the first impression. It really does seem to be very roomy. You've got the car out beyond you. You're not sort of huddled right up against it. There's plenty of room and the seat nice and comfortable. Yeah, it's a good feeling. Things you may need, washers, light controls and so on, are within reach. It's a very simple car, and I think the simplicity of driving it is a major factor. I don't want to sound disparaging, but I think women would like it, because I know women especially get intimidated by big, heavy vehicles. This is a big vehicle and it's heavy, it's very strong, but it's very light to drive. It drives like a small car. Nice steering wheel. Here's a nice little feature over here, particularly good for four-wheel driving. The little switch here you press and the mirrors come in. That's handy if you're going through bush or timber, or if you happen to have made a mess of parking in the garage. To put it back in place, just press the button again. It goes back and goes back to exactly the correct position. The gear change, nice. Yeah, nice. Very precise, easy. You don't have to fight to find a place for the gears. It's not hard getting the right one. Goes in very accurately. There's also an automatic, of course, the American Hydromatic transmission from GM, so it's strong. And that's a nice combination, a big, strong truck-like automatic transmission that's smooth, yet has the power to handle the sort of requirements that a four-wheel drive vehicle would have. Lovely engine. I'd really like to get this thing flying. I'm sure it'd go. It really has that lively feel. And yet, surprisingly, because of all those 4 valves per cylinder, 24 valves, that used to be the configuration for a racing engine. And they had tons of power up high and nothing down low. You had to get it up on the cam, as they said. Somehow or other, the Isuzu engineers have managed to give you the best of both worlds, because it pulls very well low down, and yet it's got that lovely smooth flow with masses of horsepower at the end of it all. I'm a great believer in first impressions. When I did road testing all the time, when I wrote for magazines and newspapers constantly, I was testing 2-3 cars a week. And I found that first impressions were important and usually accurate. You sit in a car and within a couple of 100 metres, you know roughly what it's going to do. You know whether it's comfortable, how it will perform and so on. And the feeling I get with this vehicle is that it is exceptionally strong. Now, I'd expect that from Isuzu. They're one of the world's great truck makers, and I know just how strong and durable their products are. And this feels like a four-wheel drive that's been made by a truck maker. Yeah. Someone who really knows how to put strength and durability into a vehicle. While it's true that most vehicles like this are going to spend most of their lives on bitumen roads, it is, after all, a four-wheel drive. It's designed for off-road work. Now, when you consider that of the more than 800,000 kilometres of country roads in Australia, more than 500,000 are unsealed, the chances are that sometime in the car's life you're going to strike a rough road, even around the city like this. So let's see how it performs. Oh, I wish I had one of these in the London-Sydney Rally. It's great to have lots of power, and instant response which this engine gives you. And it's good to have a really strong chassis, which most four-wheel drives have. You know, they're hard to break. But what this seems to have is controllability. It's quite possible to drive through these rough patches here without dithering around, bouncing around the side. There's some pretty rough potholes here, but yeah, straight ahead. You don't sort of wander around, and that's unusual. You can apply power and you're not losing control of the vehicle, which so often happens. I mean, some will give you a smooth ride, but you're wandering around a bit like a rowing boat. I think much of the reason for that precision, for the nice taut feel about the vehicle, is not just the steering and the nice soft wheel and other factors which give you confidence, but it's the back end. The rear suspension designer has a 4-link rear suspension. Got coils, of course, to do the up and down business, and shock absorbers to dampen that effort, but those 4 controlling points really do locate the back axle, and they keep the wheels exactly where they should be. Now, with a lot of rear ends, especially with vehicles of this caliber, they're a little sloppy, and they're designed that way so that you get a very smooth ride, but it wallows. The back sort of wanders around a little bit, and the wheels themselves do a little steering. Now, we've grown so used to vehicles that are like that we accept it. That's, you know, the way things are, but it's not the way things are with this vehicle. They are very precise, with the result that when you do turn the wheel, the car goes exactly where you want it to go, and that's a great safety factor. Both the Pajero and the Jackaroo have remarkably similar specifications for their suspension. Each has an independent front end controlled by torsion bars, and it works well in both cases. And the rear is by coil springs, although in the Jackaroo's case there's a 4-link suspension. In the Pajero it's only 3 links. And it's that missing link that makes quite a difference. There's another change too, or another difference between the two, and that is that the Jackaroo has longer wheel travel. Now, the Pajero used to be the leader in this class in this type of thing, but it's been superseded now by the Jackaroo, which has more travel, with the result that you do get more faithful following of the terrain by the wheel, and therefore not only greater control and greater steerability, but it's more comfortable. You see, what happens at the back with the 3-link suspension is that instead of having the wheels firmly in place and absolutely parallel and following the course that you want, they wander a little bit, and they are inclined to do a little bit of rear end steering. It's imprecise. You wallow around a little bit. You go a bit in a marshmallow fashion, and you can notice the difference. Instead of going exactly where you want, you wobble. An exclusive feature of the Pajero is Super Select, which enables the driver to select any one of 4 transmission modes, and they range from 2-wheel drive in high range like we are now, to 4-wheel drive, low range, and with the center differential locked in place so that you can get through hopefully anything. It's what they used to call creep, you know, really rough conditions. Amazingly, it can be selected, this Super Select, at any speed up to 100 kilometers an hour. None of this stopping and getting out and selecting it. You can do it on the move. But it worries me. It is so complex. I've heard stories of transmission failures, and it would require a very delicate operation. Like a ham-fisted driver trying to change it 100 on a road like this would walk home many times. It really does concern me. I don't like that feature. I know that the really enthusiastic 4-wheel drivers prefer the free-floating front hubs that you can lock in place when you need them. That's classical 4-wheel driving. This Super Select, I think, is just maybe a little bit gimmicky. Well, that was impressive. It stopped well, right under control, which is always good. No sign of the tail jiggling out or anything like that. Mind you, it's got ventilated discs front and rear, and that makes it a very exceptional vehicle. Very impressive. Now, this vehicle, of course, has the ABS brakes option, that stops the brakes locking. Works very well on bitumen. Bit doubtful on dirt, which is why rally cars don't have it on their specification. But on bitumen, yes, great. Interestingly, the RACV, the motoring organisation in Victoria, carried out braking and acceleration tests for a standard, in other words, a non-ABS Pajero and a Jackaroo. It found the Jackaroo stopped 8.9 metres shorter from 100. More important, I think, the acceleration figures from 0 to 100 to get up there in the first place. The Jackaroo took only 13.3 seconds against 14.7 for the Pajero. If you combine the two in time, that is from 0 to 100 and back to 0, which is a fairly modern way of testing overall performance, the Jackaroo is significantly better. They're obvious rivals, these two, because they fit into the same area as far as size and performance and equipment and price. But bear in mind that if you are buying one or the other, that the Jackaroo comes equipped with a lot of features that are only optional extras on the Pajero, and quite often expensive extras. So if you're looking around and comparing prices, make sure you're comparing features as well and what those features cost. Now, many people will think that one advantage of the Pajero is it's been around for a long time. It has all the advantages of steady development, and that's true. It's been around for years. It's been progressively developed into being a fine vehicle. But its age is also a disadvantage. It is, in effect, a glitched-up version of what is now quite an old design. On the other hand, the Jackaroo is brand new, designed by one of the world's great truck makers to do a specific job, and they've done, I think, the job brilliantly. A number of magazines have carried out comparative tests: Wheels, 4x4 Australia and Bush Driver. Bush Driver came up with the summary that the Jackaroo was better off-road and the better all-round vehicle. They found good points in both, of course, because they're both fine vehicles. But Bush Driver said, no, what was it? With the Jackaroo, take me, beat me, I'll still be there tomorrow. They also said that fuel consumption showed that in over 1,000 kilometres of their test course, the Jackaroo came out from between 2.5 to 3 litres per 100 kilometres more economically. Now, that's an enormous saving. If you're doing an average four-wheel drive number of kilometres per year, that's a saving of between $300 and $500 per year. And that's a consideration well worth bearing in mind when you make your choice. My choice? Well, I think the Jackaroo is better. The things I like about it are, in the long term, I think it'd be a cheaper vehicle to run. Not only more economical, but I think your servicing costs will be less. It's simpler, and of course, you have the great advantage of it being serviced by Holden dealers who are everywhere. And there's nothing on board this vehicle that will confuse them. They're familiar with many of the parts. It'll be a simple, straightforward vehicle to service. The good points? Well, the ones that stand out in my mind after the test are the brilliant motor. I mean, I never thought I'd find a sports car engine in a four-wheel drive, and yet it has four-wheel drive characteristics low down. It's just a wonderful, wonderful engine. I like the suspension. I like the precise steering. I like the strength. I like the suggestion of great durability. It's got a really rock-solid feel about it, and it'll last forever, I would think. But I guess the thing that would impress most buyers, people who want a versatile family car, is that it is so comfortable, so well-equipped, and above all else, so spacious. If you're after a family wagon with good views, good equipment, and the sort of security you want from such a large vehicle, then I think this is the vehicle you should choose.